Thank you for being here. I'm Mark Greenberg. I'm Dean of Libraries here at Western. My preferred pronouns are he, him, his. As we begin this morning, I'd like to acknowledge that this place where we're gathered today, our university, our community, are built on the traditional territory of the Lummi and Nooksack peoples. May we nurture our relationship with our Coast Salish neighbors and the shared responsibilities to their homelands, where we all reside today. I'd like to thank you for taking time today to come together so that we can voice strong opposition to the anti-Semitic vandalism that targeted Jewish studies materials here in the library. The deliberate destruction of library books, along with the hateful slurs written in them, constitute a reprehensible criminal act that will not be tolerated. Instead, by our show of solidarity, by the public event here today to replace the vandalized books, and by our proud and purposeful addition of new books to the collection, we vigorously oppose acts of bigotry and hate against the Jewish community and against all minoritized and marginalized groups. In thinking about recent events, I was reminded of a recent newspaper story. It tells of Austria's National Film Archive, which just completed a year-long project to digitally restore the 1924 film Die Stadt ohne Juden, The City Without Jews. The film is based on a 1922 novel of the same name by the prolific Austrian writer Hugo Bettauer. In his fictional account, Bettauer offers a stinging social critique of Vienna's cultural and economic decline when the Austrian chancellor issues a decree expelling all Jews from the country. At first, the population celebrates the departure of its Jewish citizens. Vacant Jewish homes lessen a housing shortage. Business competition eases, and it gets easier to find seats at the theater. But before long, the negative impact of the Jewish community's absence becomes clear. The economy slides into a tailspin. Publications cease, cultural and intellectual activities decline, cafes close, and fashionable clothes become difficult to find. Without Jews as a convenient scapegoat, politics becomes, in Bettauer's words, even more stupid and boring. The author's scathing attack on the absurdity of anti-Semitism was not lost on many Austrians in the pre-war years. The film version of the novel sparked violent outbursts during some screenings, and the book was burned. In 1925, Bettauer was assassinated by a man who claimed to be on a personal mission to rid Austria of its Jewish writers and scholars. The allegorical city without Jews is also a story for a more recent time, a warning about the loss to all of us in any city without diversity, without dreams, without dreamers. Bettauer's city reminds me of a library devoid of books on the rich history and culture of the world's diverse communities. Library materials that explore race, religion, ethnicity, gender identity, class, place, and ability are critical elements in any effort to understand and improve the human condition. These materials must be present in an academic library, readily available to readers, and free from attack. The willful, malicious destruction of books because of their subject matter has a long and dark history and will not be tolerated. In the face of the recent bigoted and hateful acts targeting the Western libraries, we are more determined than ever to build inclusive collections. Unlike Bettauer's fictitious Vienna, Western has recognized what happens when minoritized and marginalized groups or the books about them are targeted. We are all threatened, and opportunities for learning and advancement are diminished. For recognizing these threats, I'd like to convey my appreciation to all of my library colleagues, faculty, staff, and student employees. Thank you for your personal and professional support as we've worked together through some difficult issues in the aftermath of the vandalism. I'd also like to thank colleagues across the university and members of the community who've contacted me to express their outrage regarding the incidents and their support for the library's collections, programs, and services. And finally, to the many donors who've made gifts over the last few weeks to replace vandalized items and to grow the collection. I express my gratitude for your commitment to diversity and inclusion, to Western's educational mission, and to its library. The replacement copies and editions that your generous gifts have made possible are on display at the front of the room and will be shelved and ready for use in the coming days. It's now my pleasure to introduce Western's president, Sabah Randhawa. As a first-generation college student, Dr. Randhawa came to the U.S. from his native Pakistan to pursue graduate studies. He witnessed the transformative role of higher education in so many lives in the U.S. and abroad, and this has made him passionate about increasing inclusion and success in higher education for traditionally underrepresented and marginalized students. He also believes that higher education has a crucial role to play in increasing respect and mutual understanding across diverse experiences. Please help me welcome President Randhawa.
Mark, thank you. When I first learned about the anti-Semitic vandalism that targeted Jewish studies library books, I was appalled and upset. I was upset that we continue to see in our community and university such anti-Semitic acts of hate and bigotry. I was upset about the continuing culture in our society where individuals feel they have the permission to perform such acts, and where our political and social environment has contributed to an atmosphere in which expressions of intolerance and bigotry have resurfaced to an appalling degree. I was upset that this particular activity occurred in our library, the heart of our institution, the heart of any academic institution, and involved the destruction of the very objects of knowledge itself. I am still upset. However, now more than being upset, I am saddened by this act of hate and destruction. I am saddened for the fear such an act creates among all of us, particularly those members of our community who are from marginalized groups. More than anyone else, I am saddened for the individuals who perpetrated this act of hatred. I am saddened for them because of their narrow worldview. I am saddened for them because they have closed their minds to growing by learning about other faiths, values, and philosophies, the very reason why we are at a university. I am saddened for them because, in spite of what they think, their act is an act of cowardice conducted in the shadows versus having the courage to have an open dialogue with others about their beliefs and perspectives while being open to the opportunity to hear others' values systems. I want to thank you all for being here today to stand together in solidarity against hate and bigotry towards the Jewish community and towards all marginalized groups. Whether campus is your home or you live in Bellingham or beyond, we are all one community. We are united in opposition against these acts of anti-Semitic vandalism and against all such acts of hatred and bigotry. This kind of cowardly action perfectly illustrates the nature of hate and bigotry because it flourishes in darkness and withers when exposed to the light of reason and intellectual scrutiny. Democratic institutions and values are not automatically sustained. One of the central mandates of education is to examine what it means to be a responsible citizen and to ensure that human values are appreciated, nurtured, and protected. Silence and indifference to the suffering of others or to the infringement of civil rights in any society can perpetuate these problems. I wish I can tell you that this is the last such act of hatred at Western. But what I can tell you is that we cannot have such acts of hatred and bias create a culture of fear at Western. We need to express our full support for those who are targeted by these acts of bigotry. We need to double our efforts to open our minds and hearts to accept others for who they are and to learn from what every individual and every group has to offer. And we must defeat attempts to divide us into fearful, mutually distrustful tribes. Your presence here today confirms our collective resolve to replace hate and bias with understanding and solidarity. And so does our response to these vile acts by replacing all the books that were damaged and adding even more. And I want to join Mark to thank our generous donors who have not only helped make our collection whole, but have increased it. The vandalism is a symptom of a larger disease, and the cure calls for much more than protecting one set of resources or one group of people. The disease of hate and bigotry affects everyone in our community, and it is only by coming together to implement truly inclusive, comprehensive solutions that we are able to end it. Last year, Western's Task Force on Preventing and Responding to Antisemitism produced an extremely well-researched report with recommendations that acknowledge the interconnected nature of racism, bias, and hate. We will continue to implement and pursue these recommendations, knowing that our fight against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, sexism, and other forms of racism, bias, discrimination, and hatred is best fought on a united front. As an institution of higher learning, Western has a special responsibility and a special strength to contribute to this fight against bias and hate through teaching and education, both on our campus and in the community. We are fortunate to have outstanding, caring faculty and staff, students who are inspired to make positive change in the world, and community partners who believe in the fundamental power of education to be that light. Thank you for standing together as one community today and in the future, united against hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabah. Our next speaker, Sandra Alfers, is professor of German Sandra Alfers is professor of German and German section head in the Department of Modern and Classical Languages at Western. She's also the director of the Ray Wolpow Institute for the Study of Holocaust, Genocide, and Crimes Against Humanity. The Institute advances knowledge about the Holocaust, genocide, including ethnic and religious conflict, as well as attendant human rights abuses. Students engaged in studying the Holocaust, genocide, and crimes against humanity are provided with the critical tools to analyze, understand, and differentiate their underlying complexities and to work toward their prevention. Dr. Alfers' preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. Dr. Alfers?
Thank you for being here this morning with us as we stand up in unity against anti-Semitism, bigotry, and hate on our campus. Like all of you, I was repulsed to learn about the destruction of books in the Jewish Studies section of the library. As someone born and raised in post-war West Germany, the destruction of books conjures up particularly disturbing ghosts from the past. When preparing my remarks for today, I found myself going back in my mind to images of one of the most powerful visual representations of the loss of cultural artifacts in a German context, Michael Ullmann's Empty Library. Located underneath the site of the May 1933 book burning in Berlin, the memorial's empty bookshelves, representing loss and absence through a negative space in the ground, invite the visitor to contemplate the void left by the forceful removal and erasure of books, and by extension, the people and cultures associated with them. At night, light radiates from the space below into the Berlin sky. Ullmann's memorial work is an eerie reminder of the disregard Nazi Germany held for everything and everyone not conforming to its racial ideals and ideologies. Let me be clear, I am not equating what happened at Western with the 1933 book burnings in Germany or even the Holocaust. If we want to learn from the past, we must, of course, carefully analyze, differentiate, contrast, and compare, and learn to pay attention to detail, to context, to language. This is why we are here, after all, at Western, a public university firmly rooted in the liberal arts. Holocaust and genocide education is integral in any liberal arts curriculum. The Holocaust, with anti-Semitism at its very core, was not an accident. It occurred, and here I quote, because individuals, organizations, governments made choices not only to legalize discrimination, but to allow prejudice, hate, and ultimately mass murder to occur, end of quote. Critically examining the past and remembering it bestows us with ethical responsibilities for the future and the present. Rebecca Nuth reminds us of the long global history of biblioclasm, the destruction of books in their broadest sense, and in its most severe form, libricide. I'm sure each of us can come up with their own example. Thanks to the support of many, our shelves in Wilson Library do not remain empty. And so we have replaced books that were destroyed and added traditional and new formats in written, oral, and visual form to enhance our collection. More than 120 items have been added thus far, some of them not held by any other library in the state. The recent rise in hate crimes and violence against minorities that the U.S. has experienced is well documented by organizations like the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the American Civil Liberties Union. Daily, we witness the demonization, marginalization, discrimination, and criminalization of ethnic, national, racial, religious, and social groups. This comes on top of the existing wounds of racism, slavery, segregation, and white settler colonialism. Anti-Semitism, Holocaust distortion and denial, Islamophobia, and anti-immigrant sentiments are also on the rise internationally. Along with dedicated colleagues and students, I served on the university-wide task force on preventing and responding to anti-Semitism, one of the committees established in recent years to address campus issues of diversity, inequity, and inclusion. We submitted our report last year, and if you have not already done so, I encourage you to read it and to familiarize yourself with the 21 recommendations moved forward to campus for implementation by President Randhawa. The first recommendation, to develop a working definition of anti-Semitism to guide implementation, was recently completed when Western became, to the best of my knowledge, the first university in the United States to adopt the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism for educational purposes. This is only a first step. and a good reminder that much work needs to be completed by all of us to implement recommendations. Here is our opportunity to address the ills of anti-Semitism on our campus. Born out of a true, inclusive, and collaborative spirit, the report is as specific as it is broad, thus offering points of departure for our campus as a whole. When you return to your office, to your classroom, to your home after the end of this gathering, ask yourself how you can truly make a difference, how to take seriously the real fears, threats, and anger that exist in our communities. Events like Memorial Days or commemorative services may run the risk of becoming part of empty rituals aimed only at easing our conscience. They also, and I quote, do not protect us from becoming indifferent in our lives, end of quote. Reports can be shelved and forgotten. So commit yourself to being engaged, to actively, thoughtfully, and respectively be building bridges, not walls, and to creating much needed change, to seek knowledge and to apply it. Therein lies our responsibility as we stand up in unity against anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And to all of you, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to diversity and inclusion at Western, for our educational mission, and for our libraries. Thank you again.